Hello, welcome back to Mountain Jim Card Collectibles. So, strangely enough, I ran across another post on X that has to deal with breakers. I seem to be just hitting story after story this week about breakers and breaking companies. And the story today has to deal with another breaking company that is tied with Fanatics Live or Fanatics Collect. That pulled 3 debut patches out of 2 cases of Topps Chrome Update. Okay. And overall, the hobby feels like the odds against that happening are really atrocious to an extent. I'd have to agree, I think a lot of us are still pretending that this market is different than it actually is. Now, I do know that, maybe some kind of average people can pull an MLB debut patch out of Topps Chrome Update. I know I've watched Jab's Family, and he pulls quite a bit, he rips a lot of cards. I know he pulled an MLB debut patch. This is just kind of a no-name player, unfortunately. And we've gotten used to this market where the best of the best debut patches, even though they claim the Paul Skeens MLB debut patch was pulled by a kid, on Christmas morning, but, a lot of the proof there, it just hasn't really been, hammered out. But the sense is it's like there's 2 casinos here. There's for your average Joe hobbyists like you and I for the most part, and then there's the casino for the breaking companies. And people are getting exhausted, I just don't know how long this market can continue to, treat the consumers as badly as it does, and still have consumers believing that they have, an opportunity to get awesome cards like Topps is always trying to, promote. So here's the post, Once again, this comes from Baseball Cards. This is a fairly recent post. Came out on January 6th. So, Baseball Cards, he's doing some good work, as a watchdog from this hobby. So let's see what he says here. Go ahead. Tell me I'm a tin hat. Multiple breakers pulling multiple debut patches. I don't think there's any way this is luck or coincidence. And settle down with the volume argument. I believe it's directed and intentional, and it is one of the top reasons to stop buying modern boxes. And I would agree with that statement too. I just think if you're buying in the modern and you believe you have a chance at some of these cards, I just think you're lying to yourself. This stuff is made for breaking companies so that they can market it and, people can see it, that's how Topps likes it. So let's take a closer look at this original post. Before I read this, let's go ahead and look at some of these cards. So here's this March 31st, 2025 MLB debut of Garrett McDaniels. Redemption. Now he's with the Angels. I haven't heard a lot about that guy, to be honest. But it is strange that, here it is, nice redemption out of just a few cases. Okay. Let's look at the other cards here. We see this Spencer Bivens MLB debut of June 16th, 2024. It says believe in yourself, okay? And then we see this MLB debut of September 28th, 2024 for Mark Church, okay? And this comes from We the Hobby, which apparently is tied in with Fanatics, okay? So that's something to consider. But I do like what he wrote up here, believe in yourself. That's pretty sweet, Now, let's be honest here. These guys aren't the biggest players out there, so that's something to consider as well. But the odds of this happening really are pretty atrocious, with these patches. We call this seeding and marketing, for the first reply for the most part to it. Yeah. That's all that Topps Fanatics is all about, is seeding. Problem is the people who are chasing the seeds never seem to get them. Womp, womp, womp. At Fanatics strikes again. Man, I hope someone can sue them, plus Michael Rubin, into oblivion. Compare that to all the LCSs across America that hardly any pulled, maybe one in the wild, but you have one or two breakers pulling multiple, 3 and 4 within a few cases that are given to them. Fanatics pulls separate inventory for them, and they know which cases the hits are in. And, my video I did yesterday talked about, how supposedly there's different pools of inventory for different consumers, like, if you're just a normal consumer buying on, Topps direct to consumer versus if you're a breaker ordering. So that's something to consider. Now, can't prove that for sure. I mean, it's just kind of a rumor for now. All I had was a screenshot for the evidence yesterday. But nonetheless, there's a lot of people pulling their hair out because of that issue. And then we have this issue with, hot boxes or stacked boxes or loaded boxes, that just seem to keep flowing into the realms of the breaking companies. No one is surprised anymore this hobby has gone to the breakers. Forget the non-breakers, Topps. Just keep having you guys get more customers so you can inflate the price per team. Yeah. And I'll say it again, breakers always come first in this hobby. If you want good cards, you have to buy into a break, and I just don't like that. I grew up in a time period when I could go and buy my own boxes, and rip them. And, that's, I guess, one of the most eye-opening things about the junk wax era is I know a lot of people want to demonize the junk wax era, but I guess it was more of a time for collectors to, live up to getting their collections fulfilled because it was affordable for licensed product over this really hyped up monopoly of only one company having, the best sports licenses so that they can hold it over all the consumers' heads and favor their own breaking companies tied in with Fanatics. Now, I know there's other breaking companies out there that aren't tied in with Fanatics, that buy a lot of product as well. And honestly, I believe they're hurting the market as well. I just wish breaking companies would go away. I never saw them in the 20th century. They're just a creation of the 21st century to sit and burn everybody to no end. They are great, but that Bivens with the additional statement is sharp. Yeah, I mean, I like that, It's nice when they do that, these players, when they start to do more of the card than just sign it. And what I notice too is they're not just, putting their sloppy old initial autos down, like, a lot of athletes do. I'm pointing my finger at Cooper Flag. It's like, man, I don't know if those are auto pens. I don't know if those are actual autos. I don't know if he had a buddy sign that stuff, because we know the stories of, these guys hire people or have their parents sign stuff for them. Whenever I see an initial auto, I just go, it's complete trash. This is the breaker that pulled 30 or so gauge Workman autos out of 2 cases of jumbos. I take the patches or compensation for that. And we don't know about that. I mean, I sure hope that's not the way it's working. How, I couldn't imagine, Topps Fanatics, watching videos and going, okay, well, we got to really help this breaker out because he got burned on this box here. I don't know if that's happening. I sure hope not, because if that's what's going on, that's as bad as it gets. This is why I gave this hobby up. It's such a scam and obviously rigged. Well, and that's just it. Is a lot of people will point at the people and say, you're wearing a tinfoil hat, Here come the conspiracy theorists. But let's face it. Are we really wearing a tinfoil hat? Because, we're just consumers who are watching, a company favor different consumers. Hot boxes to other breakers since Filth Bomb and Backyard Breaks are effing toxic at the moment. Now these idiots are trying to flex GTFO. Seems like everything in life is a scam. I'd have to agree. I mean, I have lived in the U.S. my entire life of always watching, these kind of higher society, wealthier types, people who are connected, always get the best of the best. And people who aren't connected always getting the worst of the worst. And eventually you just start to step back and go, this really is kind of a two-tiered society to that extent, You're either part of the club or you're not part of the club. Unfortunately, I've lived an entire life of not being part of the club. So another Fanatics breaker pulls 3 debut patches, this time in 2 cases. The odds of this happening is between 3 and 15 million to 1. And it's happened twice already between this and the Filth Bomb shitheads. But yeah, Fanatics isn't seeing their breakers at all. Yeah, just give yourself a pat on the back. No, this isn't happening. This is as legitimate as can be. So while Filth Bomb is quietly dealing with their issues, Fanatics is juicing another breaker. Makes sense, yeah. They gotta juice somebody, Gotta keep people buying. But what gets me about this hobby is a lot of people really do buy into it. They watch the breakers, they go out and purchase the boxes, and they get burned a lot of the time, but they still keep doing it, So now let's read this post from Baseball Cards, because he just he was talking about the posts we just went over. Okay. This is the same breaker that pulled the pitching dual Ohtani and Ruth dual signature from 2023 definitive. If you were wondering who pulled the batting version, it was Filth Bomb. Yeah. And I hope you understand that by now is don't believe you're going to get the best of the best cards in this market. Unless you buy into a break and spend a lot of your money and gamble. Because if you think you're going to hit good cards just being an average Joe collector, ripping a box here or there, it's not going to happen. And even for the people who push hard, I've been watching striker breaks really pushing hard into the retail boxes of, this 2025, 2026 Topps Chrome basketball, chasing Cooper Flag. And I have seen him get burned constantly. And every now and then he hits a card, but overall, it's ugly to watch, And I know he has a program and he's making money from the views. And I'm glad he is, but still, I would recommend watching Striker Breaks open up the retail. I know he tries his best to hype it up, but man, it's still just a sad story to watch. It really is. It does seem fishy, but what keeps me from being convinced is the fact Topps publishes odds for these cards. It's just hard to imagine they'd open themselves up to potential legal action, associated reputational damage for something like this. They'd be putting the entire business at risk. Just doesn't make sense to me. Let's see what he replies here. They post the odds, but it's based on a total run, not total amount available for purchase. I think that's their out, yeah. It's always something, with Topps Fanatics gaming the system, So I think, the constant gaslighting and self-inflicted wounds in this hobby, to keep carrying on and keep, destroying yourself. I mean, eventually these people have to wake up. I hope they do, and start looking at these corporations for what they really are. The thing is, I don't think Topps cares if individual collectors stop buying, unfortunately. Yeah, well, I've been saying that, for years, Not today, but if we aren't even discussing it, they'll lose a ton of advertising. Yeah, and that's really what the breakers do is it's this kind of hybrid advertising, watch a break, watch them pull some good cards, believe in yourself, go out and buy a box, you rip the box, you lose. And you go, why is this happening to me? Well, because you're not a breaking company. It's a numbers game, and you're opening millions of dollars of product today. You're going to hit all the good stuff. Yeah, if you want to tell yourself that, hey, tell yourself that. But we're constantly seeing these kind of loaded cases, loaded boxes, going to breakers constantly over and over again. Like it says here, 2 out of 3 isn't $1 million of product. Yeah, I mean, it's just what, 3 cases, you know? I mean, and you can guarantee if I bought a case or 2 cases, I can pretty much guarantee there won't be an MLB debut patch pulled at all. How much more marketing does Topps get if these companies pull these than if I do and I'm posting it? A lot. Topps is rigging the system for free marketing in exchange for some cards slipped in these boxes. Yeah, people have been saying that for years with this system. And that's why I just wish that, you know, this hybrid model of marketing through breakers would just collapse. And that's why I just feel like the Topps Fanatics sports licensing, you know, with these leagues should be pulled, you know. How many of these have not come from breaker boxes? And you have to ask yourself that. Now, I know that not all of the MLB debut patches are coming from breaker boxes, you know. I talked about Jab's family, you know. I mean, he's not like a breaking company, you know. A lot of times he's buying the product on his own, you know. It's these breaking companies that are constantly, you know, hitting the best of the best. And that's what's so upsetting. But radio silence when they rip 175 cases without a debut patch. Well, I have not seen that. You know, I mean, let's just throw another extreme, you know, at the wall and see what sticks. Maybe they were waiting their turn. Maybe Topps told them to hold off for a couple of weeks to spike interest when it starts to die down. Yeah, who knows how this is working out, you know, but it's still working out the way it is. Topps just has bad quality control. It's why we've seen stuff like this for years. It's not that deep. I bet some LCS has gotten a shipment with multiple case hits, one of ones in it, and they're just opened by random people, which is why we haven't been able to connect them. Well, that is a lot of the hope that keeps feeding the demon of gambling and addiction. I've talked about this before. It's the circle in your head. No, this is legitimate. No, this is just an accident. No, this is just, sometimes this stuff happens. But the problem here is it's constantly happening. Statistically, it's near impossible without rigging it. There's no way Topps is not allocating specific boxes. They may have a random player, but they are allocating a specific number of hits to breakers. Yep. And we went over that video yesterday where they talked about, you know, some Topps bot basically stating that there are different pools of product, the same product, that are going to different consumers. And that is a problem. That should not be happening. So what are these 3 worth? Honestly, wouldn't even want these 3 unless they were my kid. Laugh out loud. Well, you know, they're not the biggest name players, you know. I talked about that earlier, you know. But we can pretty much guarantee that more and more of those big name players will be getting ripped and pulled by breakers in the following years, you know, 2026 season, 2027, as long as Topps Fanatics holds the licensing. They want to have people sign up for Fanatics Live and pay the breakers. Fanatics owns those breakers to join breaks. They want people addicted to breaking, but they want it to be under the haze of having fun hobbying, yes, while debt runs wild. They don't care about that. They want the money, yep. That's what this is all about at the end of the day, you know. It's just all about the money. And it's quite disgusting. And, you know, I can keep going on and on. I mean, people are really upset about this, you know. And, you know, you have some people sticking up for, you know, this issue of these loaded boxes. You know, basically saying that, you know, that's just the way it is with breakers when you open up lots and lots of product. But the issue is the common collector. And that's what this hobby was built on. You know, it was built on the common collector. And all of a sudden, the common collector has become the ugliest, worst thing in this hobby, you know, to where they just look at you and go, you're just a joke. You know, why am I a joke? Well, you know, because you don't spend $1 million, you know, through your breaking company, through Topps, you know, or your independent breaking company, whatever. That's why collectors have been swept out of this market in favor of all the investors rolling on in and looking for their big lottery tickets. Now, are these lottery tickets? let's be honest here. I mean, he plays for the Angels. Garrett McDaniels, I mean, right there, that's a curse. I mean, maybe he'll go far, but then again, a lot of these players I talked about earlier, they have a habit of getting booted back down to the minors. I mean, that's what happened to the Jabs family MLB debut badge, So not everything is gold, Anyway, I'd like to thank all my viewers. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, it's 100% free, and you could really help out this channel by subscribing. I'd like to thank all of my new subscribers. I've been getting more and more, so thank you for subscribing. You're really helping out this channel, so I'm giving you a shout out. And then I'd like to thank all of my, my subscription-based, my true blue subscribers. You're the reasons I keep doing this, because I'm still not monetized. But anyway, I hope you all have a great day. I'm out of here. Bye.